Now let's go over some of the properties of numbers. Let's look at a basic question. What is this? What is the sum of 0 and any other number? I'm just going to call that x. Anything. It could be a 5, it could be a 6. So think about 0 plus 5. And that's equal to 5. So 0 plus any number x is the exact same number. It remains identical after adding a 0. So 0 is called, and remember this term, additive identity. We're talking about addition, so it's called the additive identity. A number remains identical after adding a 0 to it. So that's additive identity. So 0 is called the additive identity. Now, changing the order of the addends does not change the sum. So let's think about this. 2 plus 3 is equal to 3 plus 2. Both are equal to 5. So any number A plus B equals, switch the order, B plus A. As long as you're adding the two numbers, nothing changes. And this is an important property. It is called the commutative. Commuting in math means switching numbers, changing the order. It's called the commutative property of which operation are we doing? Addition. So if you're talking about addition, it's called the commutative property of addition. So you can switch the order of numbers when you're adding them without changing the sum. So now let's look at the next property. So the previous property was commutative, the commutative property where you're switching the order. Next, we have the associative property. So what do we mean by the associative property? Let's go 2 plus 3 plus 5. Now, if we want to add these three numbers, will it make any difference if I added 2 and 3 first and then added the 5, or added the 3 and 5 first and then added the 2 to the sum of 3 and 5? It really doesn't make a difference. Let's check. Do the parentheses first. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. So let's look at this. Let's do parentheses first. 5 plus 3 is 8. 2 plus 8 is 10. Both are equal to each other. So what we're doing here is, notice that we have not changed the order. 2, 3, 5. 2, 3, 5. So the order hasn't changed, but we've grouped different numbers together. We've associated 2 with 3 here. We added the 2 and 3 first. We associated the 3 and the 5 and added the 3 and 5. And 2 was added to the sum of 3 and 5. So changing the grouping doesn't change the sum. So this is called the associative property of the operation of, in this case, we're talking about addition. So it's called the associative property of addition. Now let's rewrite 6 plus 9 using the commutative property. Commutative means switching. So 6 plus 9 equals 9 plus 6. Now 4 plus 7, so the quantity 4 plus 7 plus 9, we're going to use the associative property of addition. So 4, 7, in parentheses, plus a 9. So if I want to use the associative property, I have to be careful not to change the order if you want to use only the associative property. So I'm going to write the order first. 4 plus 7 plus 9. Exact same order. Now, instead of having the parentheses around 4 and 7, I'm going to have the parentheses around 7 and 9. So the next one is, we have 5 plus 9 plus 2. And we're going to use the commutative and associative property, both. So we're going to do this one after another. So let's use the associative property first. You could do anything. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to write the numbers in the exact same order because I'm going to use the associative property. But instead of grouping 9 and 2 together, I'm going to put the parentheses around 5 and 9. The order has not changed. So this is the associative property. Next, I can use the commutative property in so many different ways. I could do this. Any sort of a switch would mean that I've used the associative property. So that could be a way of using the associative property. I could do this in a different way. Let's start with 5 plus 9 plus 2. So this would be so switching would mean using the commutative property. So now let's look at 5 plus the quantity 9 plus 2. Let's say I want to use the commutative property first. And remember that the commutative property can be used in so many different ways. What if I switch this whole parentheses with the 5? Then I've changed the order of the numbers, which means I've used the commutative property. That's one way of doing it. Now, if I want to use the associative property, now since I've already used the commutative property, I'm going to just write down the numbers in the exact same order because I now want to use the associative property. Instead of grouping the 9 and 2 together, I'm going to group the 2 and the 5. So this is the associative property of addition. Now, we're going to use addition in the real world. And what are the terms that suggest addition in word problems or in the real world? 4 is added to 2. So you have a 2 and 4 gets added to it. And that's equal to 6. 5 more than 25. So you have a 25. 5 more would suggest adding a 5 to 25, which makes it a 30. 5 is increased by 4. Increasing by 4 is the same as adding a 4, which is equal to 9. The total of 3 and 7, which means the sum of 3 and 7 is equal to 10. So remember these terms and pay attention to the words in a word problem. So read the problem first. You can pause the video and read the problem. So you want to schedule enough drivers for the upcoming week. A local pizza shop manager recorded the number of deliveries each day from a previous week. What is the total number of deliveries? The total would mean adding the numbers. So you can add maybe 2 or 3 at a time. Don't just make a long list. It's easy to make mistakes, especially if you're doing this by hand. So 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. So we have 136. So we've added the first 3 numbers and we have 136. We're going to add 61 and 97. So we'll just add 2 numbers. You can do it any way you want, whatever you're comfortable with. So we have 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 plus 7 is 14. 1, 9 and 1 make a 10. 6 plus 3 is 9. 10 plus 9 is 19. 1 and 1 make it 2. So we have 294 and we've added all the numbers up to 97. Now we're going to add 2 more. So 294 plus 103 plus 124. Line them up nicely so you're not confused. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. 9 plus 1 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. 1 is carried over. 2 plus 1 is 3, 4, 5. 521. So once we do all the math, let's think about what this 521 is. We are solving this problem to figure out the total number of deliveries, and the total number of deliveries is 521. So write down your final answer with the units based on the problem. Now, one thing that you need to remember is the term perimeter. Perimeter is measuring the outside of a region. That's called the perimeter. And how do we measure the outside? We take a tape measure, go around, which means we are adding 7 centimeters plus 2 centimeters plus 1 centimeter plus 6 centimeters plus 5 centimeters. So let's add it. 7 plus 2 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So that makes it 10. 6 and 5 make 11. So 10 plus 11 is 21. Since we're going around and measuring the outside, the unit of measurement is 21. And then the unit of measurement is centimeters. So the total when you go around is 21 centimeters.